Hello, everyone, and welcome to Andrew. Are you there? I think Andrew's got a bit of internet issues. So, welcome everyone to this week's show. We have the Paranormal Rangers back with us. So, hello, guys. How are we doing?
Doing
Doing
great.
well.
Gail, how are you doing?
Yes. Yeah, good to see you. Happy New Year, everyone. Here we are. Andrew's back with us.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Had a little bit of an internet weirdo happening going on. Laura will be in here in just a second. We are once again joined again by the Paranormal Rangers. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Everything's going well.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Doing good.
With that, we are going to talk stories of the paranormal. Do you guys have any New Year's or holiday types of stories you'd like to start with? Anything happening around the New Year's, holidays, Thanksgiving, holiday scary stories?
For me right now, it's
Christmas
pretty quiet.
Bigfoot.
It's pretty quiet.
No, I had a shoot a few weeks ago, and then it's been pretty quiet, and I'm happy with that. It's a nice time to kind of take a break.
Yeah.
All right, with that, let's talk the paranormal. So some time ago, you guys were on our show. We had a big hit. So if people may have not heard of you, just give a quick description of who you are, and what you do. Let's start with Jonathan.
Okay, so we call ourselves the Paranormal Rangers due to lack of anything better to do. We started out in year 2000. We were assigned to investigate paranormal cases of all kinds on the Navajo Indian Reservation. And we did. We didn't volunteer for it. We were assigned it. And we got pretty good at it, I would think. We did that for both me and Stan collectively for 11 years. And I finally retired. Stan was moved up into some temporary management positions, and he couldn't devote any time to it anymore. And a new director came in, and so that was kind of the end of that program. But during that time, we handled cases involving hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot reports, and Navajo witchcraft, or the skinwalker. So there was a lot going on different times, and we got involved in a lot of it, and we came up with some very unique and interesting information. So I guess that's all I have to say about that for now.
Jonathan, I'm sorry, Stan.
Yes, I had completed the U.S. Indian Police Academy, graduated from the IPA in 1997 in December, and came on board, commissioned, and during that time, I worked a lot of different details, such as SWAT and in the special projects, things like dignitary protection and a wide range of different law enforcement duties and responsibilities. But within that special projects unit, like John said, he and I were assigned to oversee what is referred to as paranormal or supernatural cases. Being part of a Native American tribe, there you have interwoven into the culture the supernatural, where you have shaman, or what's referred to as medicine men, that perform healing practices and things of that nature, ceremonies, and so it's a part of that culture, and for that culture and the history of that tribe, going back thousands of years, you have stories of things like star people,
Going back thousands of years.
yeah. So It's a part of the culture, and being law enforcement on that reservation, it's a large reservation, the largest in the United States, 27,000 square miles. So that's equivalent to the state of West Virginia. So we covered a lot of area. We performed a lot of different types of enforcement and investigation. Like John said, we investigated things related to the witchcraft and shape shifting, or what people often call skinwalkers, UFO activity, extraterrestrial beings, hauntings, a lot of different things that would fall under that umbrella of paranormal. And
you did that
so,
as Native police officers on the reservation, approved by the various high levels of police on the reservation.
well, within my career, I was commissioned as a Navajo police officer, but as a Navajo Ranger, really it's natural resource enforcement. So it is law enforcement, and you are commissioned. You do have powers of arrest and carrying a firearm.
You were full police officers who had additional duties to look into the paranormal because the culture was so radically different there.
Well, technically, the Rangers aren't police officers; they are law enforcement officers. There's kind of a difference there.
Okay.
But our task was to provide enforcement over all of the natural resources of the Navajo Nation, that being your fish and wildlife, your forestry, your livestock protection, and all of the other natural resources. So really probably the widest range of duties and responsibilities and authorities really of any law enforcement agency in the United States, really. That's the way I view it. And so very interesting. We worked about 11 years together under special projects. Like he had said, he retired in 2011, and I continued on with the department up through about 2022 or 21, and I did serve as the delegated chief ranger toward the end of my career. But yeah, very interesting stuff. Really eye-opening and in a way life-changing experiences during that time.
Wonderful. All right, Michele, want to give your background real quick?
Sure. Andrew and everyone out there, my name is Michele Meiners. I come from 3 Native American tribes, one being of the Navajo Nation, the other one is Pawnee, and the other one's Ojibwe Chippewa. And so my background is not in law enforcement, but I had the pleasure of meeting these two gentlemen through a entertainment production that they did an episode on an infamous show that I helped manage for several years with one of my business partners in the field. For trademark purposes, I cannot mention the show, but as I have been working up in the Uinta Basin, I can mention that I found anomalous and conducted experiments with Dr. Segala on electromagnetic fields, and the high strangeness that occurred up in the Uinta Basin with sightings of Bigfoot, UFOs, the thing that we don't like to talk about, the SWRs, which is the skinwalkers. So many people, and interviewing a lot of incidences that occurred with medical cases. We studied for about 3 or 4 years. We had participants, And we were finding out, linking that a lot of the electromagnetic fields were with the individuals. So when I met these two Navajo men through my partner, there were so many commonalities as far as our investigative backgrounds, the things that we discovered, the experiences we had from the experiences that were given to us. They asked me to come on board and be a part of their team and bring kind of a female sense to the group.
You were an
And
investigator. You were an investigative reporter also, previous
I was
iteration.
also an investigator reporter when I was in my youth, younger than I am now. But what we did was I did a lot of uncovering a lot of stories in my youth that had to deal with politics and the nation's under presidencies that we were dealing with, the Contras and so on and so forth. So I covered those stories in my past. And then I raised my children, traveled the world, and started having these paranormal experiences to different areas that I lived in around the world. And I just basically chalked it up to my childhood. You know, my relatives must be near. It was like, you know, Stan was saying, our culture, we interact with our supernatural. Mostly we call them our ancestors, and they're with us. And the orbs that come our way, we considered our ancient ancestors. So there's a lot here that goes into our culture. There's a lot. One interesting thing is I belong to the clan of the Skidee. We hold the star charts of the star people, as Stan had mentioned, and each culture has their own version of their star people and their galaxies that they came from. So that's how I got to become a paranormal ranger.
Wonderful. Now that we got everyone's background set, recently it has come out that a Miami mall had an invasion by some aliens. Have you guys heard
Yes.
about this?
I've
We
heard
did.
about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I saw the
a
footage.
portal opens up and three 10-foot tall grays walk through the portal in a Miami mall on the 1st of January. 70 police cars show up. Now, as police officers, do 70 cop cars show up? They shut down all air traffic control and half the city power go out for a bunch of kids fighting? Because that's the story. It was just a bunch of kids fighting. But in reality, they shut down power to half the city. The airport shut down. Literally, all the flights shut down simultaneously. A bit of a weird response, isn't it?
It's one of the challenges is this occurred within a metropolitan area.
The second time in 6 months. Las Vegas was the first time.
Right.
So in the Miami incident, you have a lot of the public that are witness to various activity that's going on around that particular incident. And in the past, we've seen law enforcement and government military entities that have tried to control and hide and cover up various incidents. And today, given that everybody, every adult and even children down to the age of 10 years old carry a cell phone, and most of them are what's termed as smartphones that have a video and camera capability. So in this day and time, it's really almost impossible for agencies to be able to contain and or cover up like what was done in the past. So I think one of the big challenges to me when I look at this is today, and I know we have the element of AI that is a component of even like video manipulation in post-production and stuff. So it's really, really hard to determine, unless you have the equipment to be able to analyze things, if images and video that you're seeing is indeed, a real video, or if it's been hoaxed or manipulated in some way. I have seen various video components from that particular incident, but unless you're in that circle to be able to get in and boots on the ground, take a look at some of this stuff, it makes it really difficult to judge whether that's, you know, something of value as far as a true extraterrestrial event that occurred or not. There are a lot of people that are within that community that are describing things that would be paranormal, you know, objects in the sky that were in and around that time frame. And so it's very interesting. We live in a very interesting time today, and especially with various paranormal activity.
Well, the irony is it happened the day before the Epstein papers came out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
True.
And another thing to know, people like, where are all the videos? Just so you know, YouTube knows your video. As soon as you upload it, they already know what it is. The second you hit upload, it can scan the entire file. And if it's on something they don't want list, your file's never getting up. And then they track you back to where you are and erase it off your device. They can do that. And they've been able to do that for a very, very long time. So people ask where the video is. Here's another thing. When you are in fight or flight decision mode, is your first thing to take out my camera? When you've never seen something 10 feet tall suddenly appear in front of you, is your first instinct, no. Your heart's beating too fast.
Right.
And you're going to choose your life choice first. Run or stand.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in this case, I'm going to be upfront and say that off the bat, I'm always skeptical. I mean, you have to do a lot to convince me that something is going on and something nefarious is happening. As you know, with Native Americans, we have a long history of distrust of the U.S. government. 6,000 treaties since 1492. And out of those 6,000 treaties, just in the United States, not one of them has ever been kept. So, you know, the government has they're batting 1,000 right now. And so, you know, we look at that and, of course, we're going to be going, okay, you know, what's actually going on here? What's behind the scenes? Is this a possible false flag deal to get the public used to the idea that aliens or EBs or extraterrestrials or interdimensional hoppers, you know, are coming here and testing the reaction? There was some stories coming out, and the thing is a lot of these stories are just hearsay. So-and-so said, so-and-so said. And what I'm hearing is that people were actually accosted by the police departments there and asked to delete videos that they had on their phones.
It's true.
Now, this flies in the face of actual police conduct, because if I've got a fight with about 1,000 people involved, and, you know, where are the injuries? Where are the ambulances? You know, where are the shootings? Because every gangbanger that I knew of, you know, had a little 25 auto in their pocket. So, you know, you have that going. And then it seems to me that the police departments would want copies of those videos because they could identify possible suspects. And that never happened.
Or have they announced any suspects? Only 4 kids were arrested.
Yeah, that's probably because they wouldn't give them their cell phones. I'm just kidding. But you know, there's a lot of interesting information. And I'm going to digress just a little bit and tell you a little story, and I'll make it brief. But back years ago, about 2015, city of Winslow, Arizona, all over the social media platforms, a story came out from the night before. They said an object came down over the city. And there was what was described by people as blue lightning all over the place. And as this thing went over, it created a sonic boom, and all the lights in Winslow, Arizona went out. And so the social media platforms are just loaded up with pages and pages of descriptions of this thing. They said that the state prison there, the lights went out and did not come back on, which I thought was really unusual because I used to work in Winslow, and I happen to know that that prison has backup generators that kick in the event of a power outage. And that they didn't kick in is really telling. So the next day I thought about it. My daughter's feeding me all this information and showing me the different posts. The next day I asked her, I says, hey, can you get some screenshots of what went on over there? And she looked it up again on the different platforms, and everything was gone. There was nothing on any of the platforms concerning the UFO that flew over Winslow. And so, I immediately, it was like, dun, 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 wow, conspiracy right in your face. And, but I talked to enough people there that informed me that something did happen. But it was, and I'm pretty sure the government is saying, oh, it was an experimental craft and we couldn't let anyone know about it, and, or whatever, but things like that, they do happen. And sometimes I think that the government is actually just testing the water with the public and allowing certain things to happen just to see what the reactions are going to be. But in the absence of any further evidence, the jury's still out.
So I want to add this. It happened January 1st, but the rest of the world didn't really notice that until the 5th, going on to the 6th of January. Mm-hmm. So there was 4 days after it happened where everything was trying to get out and trying to get out and trying to get out. And then it finally broke out, and national news covered it because it was on everybody's Facebook page, everybody's social media page. It had broke the viralness of whatever the algorithm was trying to suppress it. Now, was that testing that algorithm? That's what I think you were trying to say. Yeah. I do believe that.
And just so everybody knows, just a couple of weeks prior to that, at Torrance, California, at Del Alamo Mall, there was a gang fight over there involving quite a number of kids. Police units responded. However, they were able to show the public the indoor cameras from the mall itself, and you could see the fights going on and the police showing up. So it was well documented. But to this date, we haven't seen anything from the mall cameras themselves.
Nothing. No police officers coming out doing nothing. Now, I know TikTok has got its own weird audience on it, but there was a TikTok video about a kid calling his father, who's a Miami police officer, and was there, and the guy is asking his dad, what can you tell about it? He goes, nothing, don't talk about it, don't ever bring it up again. And every time he asks this, don't get it up, don't ever bring it up again, or I'm hanging up on you. And that was the call between a son and their father. Don't ever bring it up again, or I'm hanging up on you. Now, is that true? It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It is a test, whether it was true or false. It made it past the algorithm. Now, what did people do with this information? The same thing we're doing. We're talking about it. How fast does it spread virally? What does it really mean in the grand outcome of things going on in everybody's life? Nothing.
The challenge there is that, like with I seen the video you're talking about with the son and the father, and it's being shown the father's actually on the phone at the time. But I have encountered where there are some of those TikTok videos that are staged,
Yes.
you know, and so that's a challenge with things like that. You don't, just on the face value of that, you don't know if that's being staged like that simply for the whole TikTok thing
But
or
no
not.
Miami police
Yeah,
officers have come
right,
out and put up a TikTok video
right,
going, it's fake.
right.
Right.
True, very
And
true.
Okay.
So
I was going to say that, if it's a test, if it's testing the algorithms or anything else, I'm okay with all of it as long as nobody comes and puts a cup of Kool-Aid in my hand.
Yes.
Um,
Or it just
Somebody
teleports
starts
in
doing
front of your
that,
hand,
then I'm
or your
going to
coffee is
send you a
replaced by
CD.
Kool-Aid and you don't know it.
Yeah.
there
So I'm
is
going to
one thing
send
I
you a
do want to
CD.
elaborate on,
Mm.
Andrew, that you brought up earlier, is this phenomenon when you're in that moment of witnessing something at that level that is mm,
Paranormal.
startling or paranormal, or John and I have experienced with a lot of the different cases we investigated where there's a certain level of trauma that that person is
Mhm.
experiencing. But I had an incident where I was on the last day of our one of the uh, uh, deer hunts on the Navajo Nation, and I was coming off of the mountain, getting ready to go back into headquarters, and I was still in the woodland area, and I had come down a hill, and right in front of me was this large uh, monster buck, a mule deer buck that came down out of the woods and was within 10 or 15 feet of the front of my patrol unit. And it was the largest deer I'd ever seen, the largest buck I'd ever seen, with a massive rack. And and I sat there. I'd come to a stop, and it stopped in front of me. And for at least a good 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so, this buck and I were staring at each other, just and and after that time, it turns and it heads on up the hill, and I had a 35 millimeter camera, and I had a digital camera right there available to me, at that moment. But it didn't, for some reason, it didn't. My mind didn't click to grab the camera and take a picture of it. So
Absolutely.
a lot of times we have those experiences.
Mhm.
You
So I
know,
had something. I had,
Andrew, just
go ahead.
just to get off a little bit, going a little bit down the rabbit hole. When I was contacted by people from the Uinta Basin when this was going on at the mall, and they were also reporting, according to some of the individuals that I was talking to, that they were also seeing shadow people up one of the canyons about the same timeline. So we had kind of speculated with each other that possibly, this could be a real encounter from the universe, or this could be, like you said, a test. There's holographic imagery technologies out there. That's the rabbit hole I'm going down a little bit. And so we were trying to just analyze, and because the videos and the claims from the police force aren't coming, maybe it's under investigation, just like the Las Vegas one. We're not hearing anything more about it. It's just kind
Mhm.
of a open and shut case kind of situation. So, if you really look at this, was this a test of de-escalating a situation that could have gotten out of hand with the violence of these two gangs? And then talking about the Torrance one, same thing. What was really going on? Are they starting to use technology to reduce the violence? That's a little bit out there down the rabbit hole, but these were some of the things in discussion that I had with people having these events up in the Uinta Basin. Is some of these witnesses were also witnessing the shadow people. They call them 8 to 10, no faces, whatever you want to call it. But so it just could be under investigation, and it's a really interesting story. Like you said, the Epstein papers come out, what's the distraction? Are we starting to get more information that there truly are aliens out there, or is it just another
Mhm.
one of these false flags that we're having to deal with.
We also had the UFO hearings this summer with David Grush that fully revealed, and the government
Yes.
admitted that unidentified aerial phenomena exists. And it's now the 7th time the government or the DoD have admitted it's real. 7 times
Yeah.
admission, and yet it makes no difference to the global media. Obviously, the
Yeah.
global media is controlled by a narrative, then the narrative won't allow it to stick, let alone secondary coverage of it. Now, back to it being a test. Whether it's real or false doesn't matter. In the state that we are right now, it provides conversation. Okay? Let's say we're looking at the real side. Did the alien have a fat finger moment and just hit the button on his cloaking device and turn it off and went, whoops? Okay? Did his technology fail? We don't know. Okay? They've had other moments where all of a sudden their shielding has come down for whatever reason. Okay. And then there's the day before Epstein papers. Obviously, there's some universal joke at play, one way or another. Whether it's true or false truly doesn't matter. It is out. It's out in public discourse and public conversation, and people are going to take it to whatever levels of extreme conversation that they want for their own personal entertainment or belief. Now, the David Grush interviews in Congress. They were supposed to pass a law making all of the UFO content come out in 6 months. Well, the Congress isn't doing that. They stopped that. Nothing's going to come out. There's not going to be another Grush per public hearing whatsoever. That's been totally kiboshed. So what does this mean now? They need to keep UFOs in the public. This is a what-if scenario. So let's say the good guys who are trying to create a change in the world just said, hey, show up in a mall one day and see what happens. Okay? Or the other side said, show up in a mall and let's watch what happens. How far does it spread? It's spread right here where we're talking about, and tens of thousands of other people talking, and information is being suppressed. Great. Now what? What do we do with this piece of information? As investigators, you put it in a list of all your other stuff and you make comparisons. Has a UFO ever showed up in a mall before?
No.
I think in 1985 it did happen. Actually.
Couple of schools.
Couple of schools, yes. Okay, it's not unheard of where they just land in front of a group of people.
Well, if you look at in recent months, like let's say the last 6 months, and going into from 2023, we've had the incidents that occurred in the northern part of the United States and in Canada, where supposedly U.S. military and Canadian military engaged with unknown, or what they were determined as UAPs, unknown phenomena, and my understanding in talking with certain people that I know, and seeing some actual images and stuff, there was stuff that was shot down, and in that that causes me some concern when you hear these incidents where militaries are actually engaging in some type of combative actions with these objects. And since those times, it just seems like there's been more and more and more activity that people are witnessing and observing. Right now the jellyfish UFOs or UAPs are really the hot thing that's being documented, and so I think it makes cause for concern that whatever these sources of objects are, because of the frequency of the activity, is something unified with that intelligence planning something or doing something.
Now, little side note, we had 4 consecutive X-class flares hit the planet day by day by day on the 1st of January. Is their technology being affected by those X-class flares? That brings up a whole other set of questions that as the sun is coming out of its solar minimum and now going to its solar maximum 7 years ahead of time, because yes, normally it's 11 years, and it's coming out after 4 years, coming back from a solar minimum to a maximum. We know that the sun affects everything from physical to spiritual. And we know that many off-worlders, their technology borders on physical with full spiritual properties to it, whatever you want to call it. Are we going to be seeing more and more solar flares? The answer is yes. We're absolutely going to be seeing more and more solar flares. And if it correlates with more sightings, then we know their technology is affected by the sun. Interesting thing to look ahead to when the next set of solar flares come.
Well, from a spiritual aspect, Andrew, I've been hearing from people their discomforts in their lives right now since those flares have emitted into their lives. And, they believe that the cycle of their arrhythmic, whatever they're experiencing has either been a positive or negative. And then people look at it as I'm dealing with a negative situation in my life. And so therefore I'm being affected. From a physical standpoint, the uncomfortability of just everything we're feeling is very uncomfortable. I did have an interesting situation. I did, share it with Stan earlier today, where I had a paranormal experience over the Christmas vacation, and I don't want to make this a religious topic, but we were engaged with a grandson of mine, and we were teaching him about a religious figure in history. And it was really interesting that as some religions would call it possession, but there was like something there that I didn't feel like it was a part of my grandson. And then I just said in my head, you can go away and use some Native American medicine. That basically it became my grandson again. But you know what? Is that a part of this dynamic you're talking about with the spiritual, physical manifestations of these entities showing up, and that was something I experienced before the new year. So around that same timeline, were things gearing up, and we just didn't pay attention because we're distracted by the celebration of the holidays. And being sick, can be a physical aspect of what we've been dealing with, what's going on in our universe and the globe. So a question to think about. Is everything being tested in our own realm?
So the last time we had this significant solar flares was 2012 to 2014. In 2012 was 11 years ago, the last solar maximum. And now we're entering the solar minimum, maximum to minimum, but we're coming out of it 7 years early. 7 years early. Process that for a second. Mm-hmm. That means the amount of solar flares that are coming, we haven't experienced this many activities since the 2012 into 2013 into 2014 cycle, where it ended and the new one began. We're on a cycle now where we should have 4 to 5 times the amount of solar flares that there were before. What is that going to do to just human beings? I know every time we have major solar flares here, I can't sleep. People all over the world are having very weird dreams, past, present, future, we're all combining into one, seeing different things, not understanding what's going on. We live in a layered reality, a multiverse layered on top of each other. And it is our perception that allows us to see the different sets of layers. And in my view, as these different flares come in, different axes of vision open up. And it's what we do with that information. We can't be in fight or fear of it. We got to understand why, and then what to do with it. What to do with it is talk about it, share your experience so that we can find common ground with it. No matter what religion or denominational practice, we could all find common ground. Built into every religion and minor religion is a way to find common ground. Okay? Built into it. Separate of the dominative orders of man within inside those different organizations that want power, separate of those, we all can find common ground. And it's when we do shows like this, you guys, you have all your investigative background. We have our different backgrounds. We all come together to put together another way to see the narrative of what's going on. And when it comes to UFOs suddenly showing up in a mall, there's a comedy factor to it. And I think that the universe, in my view, is playing a joke on us, getting us set up for something more that's going to happen. And we just have to be ready to not be in fear of it.
Well, for me, I look at these events like that, and even the term paranormal really to me isn't accurate, and because I think the world and the universe that man has become a part of, it was already paranormal before we even walked on this planet.
Right.
There was probably visitors to this planet long before we ever got here. And so with us in our time, and especially in modern times, with the advent of science, and we come along and we're trying to decipher and analyze and figure out these things, but these things have been there for millennia
Right.
before we got here, and a lot of these phenomena John and I have found aren't necessarily measurable by modern scientific standards. They're not.
Which means you have
I
to modify the scientific observational technique based off your awareness, your personal belief, what you've seen before, and not what you expect, but what you know could probably happen.
Well, for me, one of the activities that happens to me ever so often is this apporting of coins out of thin air into my physical world, and I repeatedly see this phenomenon happen with my own eyes, and so I know it happens, and I know it's not some type of psychosis or whatever. I've repeatedly seen it happen, and I still have retained that physical property in those events. So I know it happens, and other people around me have in some cases have witnessed that too. And if you look at the technical side of an apport, people are often have the question: is it possible to teleport, or and it is possible if the coins can materialize from some other space or dimension into our physical world, then it is possible for for this idea of teleportation, like what you see in the television series Star Trek or the movies. It is
Well, my
possible.
car keys do it. My car keys do it all the time.
Wow. Yeah. So
You know what happened to all them socks that were in the
Yes,
dryer?
some left socks too.
Only one side.
Well, Andrew, you and I have been talking a little bit about our dream states, and you had mentioned to me, because I was also in, one of the subject matters come up with some friends just over the holidays, astral travel. We give these things name, but we've lived within the realm of time. And so one of the interesting things is you talk about your coins coming from thin air. I was talking to a friend of mine who has certain abilities, and I was looking for lost keys, and I was rushed because I had to be at a very important appointment. And she goes, just go to your closet and put your hand out. And I, excuse me? She said, go to your closet in your bedroom or your office bedroom and pull out your hand, put your hand there. And I did what she did. And, I thought, oh my gosh, this is really kind of interesting. And boom, out of nowhere, the keys dropped in my hand. And so I think we can't explain it through science of how that happened, but he can't explain it through science how the coins just appear. You just had the experience, and you're sitting there in awe because you're thinking, did I do that, or was that a manifestation that the universe wanted to work with me? It's a whole lot of subject matters there, but I just let be what let it be. Got my keys back. I was able to make my appointment. So that's an interesting topic in itself. As he's talking about, Star Trek and teleporting and such. I had kind of a situation this week. I was rummaging through my closet looking for my favorite pairs of jeans, and I couldn't find them for 3 days. And I thought, I'm just going to let it go. And the next morning I woke up, they were right there.
We've all had that happen.
I thanked whoever. Thank you for my jeans. And I thought, did I miss something?
So to Marissa in the chat room, my Moldavate teleports all the time too, as do a number of my crystals. They disappear and reappear at will. Their will, not mine.
Yeah, that brings up another thing that I think is that most people experience things that would fall under the paranormal and that umbrella all the time. Right. But we've been conditioned from the time we're small to be afraid of those things, encountering spirits within our residence or wherever we travel. And because of the motion pictures on horror films and Halloween and things of that nature, we've been conditioned from the time we were children to be afraid of that, and or that's not something, like with the Navajo culture, that's not something you mess with. That's in a realm where medicine men take care of those kind of things and stuff. And there's a lot of fear there. So we've been conditioned to dismiss a lot of those incidents when that something really very clearly occurs that is paranormal. We've been taught to, that was just the wind, that was just the house settling, even to the point of, that's just swamp gas, that's not a real, these kind of things. That's really, and I think with the advent of technologies such as the internet and cell phones, people are sharing experiences and ideas and thoughts on these subjects more readily today. Our governments can't suppress that or control that, or maybe in some countries they can, but it's more readily available in the time frame we're in today to be able to share those things in real time. We can get on here and communicate with somebody that's in Scotland, across the world, and in real time. And so we're in a really unique situation today.
So before
so do you think really that's
good?
Sorry, I'm on a bit of a delay, aren't I, Andrew? Good. So do you think, Stan, in some ways that's good, isn't it? Whether what we're seeing is fake or not, it gives people a more inquiring mind.
Somebody asked me about that the other day, and like John has said, we were assigned this. I mean, to do these investigations. It's not that we raised our hand and volunteered to do this kind of thing. We were, as John says, voluntold. So it was forced upon us to do these investigations. But in those years of doing the investigations, I really felt that John and I have been blessed to be able to experience it, all of these different phenomena, to know that there is something there. There is experiences that are real paranormal experiences. And I would much rather be exposed to know the truth that this stuff does happen, as opposed to just have blinders on and pretend, I didn't see that, I didn't hear that, or I, so I think of it as a blessing, because it allows you to look at the world and universe around us and realize, with the James Webb telescope and things, we see that our universe is far more vast than what we could really, with our mind, can even comprehend. and especially when you start talking about string theory and different dimensions and wormholes, it's we live in a vast, you can't even quantify it, how vast our universe is. So I'm very blessed to be where I am, to have experienced these things firsthand. The one thing that John and I won't do is to show fear of these things. John and I won't do that. We've always been, he and I both, very strong in our spirituality and our faith from the time we were children, and that's carried with us throughout our lives. And we put a lot of that stuff that would fall into the threatening and the malevolent in the hands of our creator, and so yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it is an awakening, and I think mankind as a whole in this time, what I've mentioned about we are in a special time, I think it is a time of an awakening of the human race, so that we can look at these things like what's going on in Gaza and other places and realize that we've got to learn to be more compromising with other people's. We all share this little blue marble, and it doesn't grow. It's stayed the same and always will. We have to share the resources, lands, and be more open to our fellow man, and the murdering and killing of people, that really we need to get. That's very primitive, and we need to get away from that and help each other. We can make this planet really a virtual heaven here on Earth if we could use our science and technologies to clean up the messes that we've made, and to better mankind.
Before you were talking about those little paranormal experiences we've all had, we just don't recognize them.
Right.
Now, before the internet and before caller ID, in my household, when I was young, the phone would ring. Everyone played the guess game of who it was.
Yeah.
All too often, somebody was always right. Oh, it's Grandma. That's Uncle Dev. It's something. And we would have these moments like, how did you know that? And it wasn't just because of the time the person was calling. Okay. It was a very natural thing. Who had that happen in their home? Guess who's calling?
We used to call it the telephone vibe. Oh, we knew when my mom was calling. Oh, it's mom.
It's interesting.
And it would be mom.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you're a child, you seem to be more. You seem to see that world so easily and so clearly. But when you go into teenage years and get a job, work full time, you kind of say no to that world and you don't choose to look at it anymore. And that happened to me when I was a kid. I saw ghosts and spirits all the time, paranormal things. And when I became a teenager, I just started to say, no, I don't want to see this at the moment. Until later on, I had to reintegrate my inner child in my adult self again. Then I started to see it again. So it's interesting how when you're a child, you see that thing so easily and they see it so easily. But when you're older, it kind of like the forgetting happens, doesn't it, for a lot of people?
But when you get older, in your senior years, a lot of times that opens back up and you become in tune.
And also it gets knocked out of you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It gets knocked out of you by the adult.
We get so caught up in the 9 to 5, and paying bills and debt and all of that, those things of that nature get pushed aside.
That's right.
Well, the subject matter we're talking about is, the awareness, but it was really interesting because of these events that I've had lately. I mean, as funny and silly as they are, keys dropping into my hands, pants reappearing. I'm thinking, what does the universe want to tell me? What am I not listening to? What am I not seeing? And then a lot of times we explain it away. Oh, it's my age. I'm losing my mind. I'm
you weren't supposed to wear those pants.
I'm not supposed to
That's what it was.
Universe
didn't like those pants.
They don't go with that shirt.
Yeah, exactly. I know I put it there, but But it's really interesting because I've been looking at this, what am I supposed to be aware of? And it was interesting talking to Stan earlier. He says, you've been going so fast, no wonder you're sick. Take care of yourself, watch your physical being. And so maybe that's attention getter, be aware of your surroundings, your universe, of the world. And people are talking to me a lot. I am not feeling good. I'm spiritually down. I'm depressed. And I have not felt that way. I've just felt like having these really funny moments, with physical things. But I'm trying to say, okay, spirit, what are you trying to tell me? So that's the awareness that I think Stan and Jonathan and all you guys we're all talking about today, is our awareness to be childlike once again, even though these are childlike experiences. And I think all the time we've lived in this world of science. We have to prove it. And yet we are the spiritual beings.
Well, one of the
looking to
things,
prove we're spiritual beings.
one of the things is that collectively, everybody, like that's even on this podcast, we in the projects we're working on, there's a collective positive energy to what the goal is, to help others and for this awakening, for this positive experience. A lot of times people that are oriented toward that type of energy are going to be targeted by negative energy. They are, and especially right now, I've said that, you've heard the term in the past, a harmonic convergence, of positive energies and things of that nature. But I think where we're at today, there's almost a demonic convergence of negative energy in our world, and it's looking for victims. It's looking for somebody to target, and that's why we have to be vigilant, every single one of us. At the end of the day, you've got to do your protective stuff. Don't neglect that. Do your cleansings and your blessings, and all of that. You got to do that. Like John has said, often, where I refer to this as a spiritual bath, cleansing, and you and I, we all get up in the morning, take a shower, brush our teeth, and all that stuff, wash our hair. Well, you kind of need to do the same kind of thing spiritually every day, because there's so much negative energy that we're exposed to every single day. You've got to clear that energy so you can remain focused on positive things and keep moving forward. But you got to be careful. It's just like John being out here today, taking care of things, that the day-to-day things that need to be taken care of. But he's also at risk in doing that simply because of the weather that's here. So he has to be extra cautious to be careful of that. Him and I have been targeted in the past, where these energies have tried to cause him and I to be in accidents, and even our family members and things of that nature. So you have to be extra vigilant,
So what you were just talking about before, I've been saying since the first day I come out, we have to learn to practice spiritual hygiene.
Yeah.
Just as you would brush your teeth, vacuum your carpets, and change your sheets,
right,
there are a set of spiritual techniques you must practice and get very good at,
right,
so that negative energy doesn't build up as a static force around you.
Right.
Because once it builds up as a static force, you can't tell the difference between your local surroundings and something that's not supposed to be there.
Well, you also run into this. You also run into this deal of, you've seen hypochondriacs, where they continually, I think I've got this, I think I've got that. Oh my, and they actually almost will themselves into getting illnesses, and we have a choice. We really do. And it's a mental frame of mind. If you
don't have to be a victim, do you?
Yeah, it's this idea of the glass half full or half empty. And if you have a positive attitude, that positive attitude radiates, and it allows other people to see it, and things don't bother you as much. I often say, we had to study stress and the causes of stress and everything else. So in law enforcement work, they tell you, okay, you have this sine wave where the stress level goes up and up and up and up. And then the idea is that it comes back down and it becomes normal. And then it goes up again. But what we found out is that in physics, they say for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So now you're getting amped up, you're stressful. And then when you start down that sine wave, instead of getting back to normal and going straight again, you keep dipping down into depression. And then you go back up before it levels out again. And so there's an equal and opposite reaction there. So what I'm trying to say is that by the same token, we look at a lot of this stuff that's going on, and when this negative energy hits, we can go up and down on this roller coaster and be, super happy one day, super depressed the next day, and just goes back and forth. And that's how you get heart disease, and that's how you have a stroke, and you become an adrenaline junkie, and pretty soon it just catches up with your physical body. So I try, what we try to do is maintain a balance. We try to maintain that balance by not going too far out of our way to seek something that's going to be exciting. We keep an even keel on it, and we don't run into that depression issue afterwards. And I think it's really something that needs to be said, because this helps you. Don't ask
you create
how we've been able to do it so well, but
I've got an answer for that. You created a neutralizing position inside yourself. There's a set of internal beliefs in you that neutralizes the negativity and balances it with a positivity. In my teachings, I call it the sacred neutral position, where information is just information. It has no attachment. You are in your sacred position of allowing neutrality. And what is a sacred energy? I'm taking it real. I'm not half-assing it.
Right.
This is my faith and connected belief with all of my willpower invested into this moment to neutralize itself.
Yeah, for
so
me,
reaching that position, you've created a neutralizing position.
Yeah, for me, I've always told myself and others that, can you look at a situation without naming it? Naming it,
exactly.
Making it a word causes fear. So when you go into a situation, say a SWAT call with an armed and dangerous person, you don't put a name on it. You just go and do what you were trained to do. And then the outcome is there. And then afterwards, you might take a deep breath and go, wow, okay, next one, and you move on. It's just like when we're traveling, say, lights and siren code 3 to an accident, and you start combat breathing, you slow your heart down, you try to relax, because you know that if you get there and you're amped up, you're not going to be any good to anybody, because you're too full of adrenaline. And so you get to the scene, you can think clearly, and when life is in the balance, when people are injured, you can do your triage and you can determine who needs to be worked on first. And so there's a lot of people alive today because of those techniques. And it's nothing really mystical. It's just your frame of mind. So, and essentially when people look at you, they think, oh, he's pretty boring. He doesn't scream and yell because a ghost made something bump. And, so he's not throwing his hands in the air and running out of the room. But we just don't allow ourselves to go there. And, we keep that balance in our lives. And afterwards, there's no there's no depression stage, I guess, and that's really important for us.
On my journey of understanding who I was and how I related to seeing the different layers of reality was coming to terms and acceptance that I can communicate to something that was non-physical. It didn't matter where or when it was from, because I learned oftentimes it was not in my time communicating to it. And once I found that neutralizing position within myself, the conversation was absolutely natural. It was no different than talking to you physically, whether we're physically present or over the internet. And once that solidified in me, it opened up a whole new realm of what paranormal versus natural.
Right.
It opened up the term natural living. Before the internet, before industrialization, we lived in agrarian society, connected to the lands. We had a basic sense and understanding of what was coming up in the weather, what the land was telling you. There was a connectedness and interconnectedness with your community, your tribe, your clan, your nation, whatever you want to call it. We've moved away from that to its unnatural living. Natural living is to be able to mind communicate, telepathy, whatever you want to call it, with the environment that's layered around you. And it's perfectly natural for us to have that. And now that so many people are experiencing paranormal, supernormal, abnormal, whatever it is you want to call it, it's still moving back to the fact that we don't need our mouth to talk and communicate. And then that brain that doesn't instantly go into fear because something's having a conversation with you. We've all had mental communication. We've all had it before.
That's where you've always taught, Andrew, about anchoring yourself in your heart.
Yeah.
And claiming your sovereignty.
So that nothing dominates the internal dialogue. But it was a natural conversation. I was 12, 13 when that would go on. 12, 13 going on 14. As I got older, I began to refine it to such a point where I could tell if a person was connected to, let's just call it, the television era of that time before the internet. And then after the internet came around, there was much more of an unnatural connection amongst people. Okay? Where the internet and the Wi-Fi that began to permeate allowed another form of unnatural communication between things layered in the reality, which made it easier for some of the not so pleasant concepts out there spread their territory to the point where high schools are some of the most toxic places for ghosts to exist. Okay. Personally, going to the future, if you want to find the truth of ghosts, put up cameras in high schools, put up EM meters around kids.
Yeah.
Have a little badge that says when the EM meter goes up and down. That's where you'll find it. You'll find all the proof right there. You don't need a church. You just need kids. Kids going through their emotional changes. They have the highest amount of energy versus us adults.
Andrew, you're talking about community consciousness. So do you believe that the event in Miami was a community consciousness event that occurred? Or was it, what is it?
I have a different word. It was the uncollective trying to force the collective to realize it's a collective.
Okay.
We are an uncollective by natural belief right now. We don't believe we're a collective. Okay? That's us, the uncollective going, hey, we're a collective. Or it's the collective telling the uncollective we're real. Both are the same result.
Our whole history, I became a devotee of looking at old 1950s science fiction films. And I'll explain that one of these days in the what do they call that? The pay for the pays on the website. But we have been taught with all these, aliens and science fiction movies in the 50s that it's something to be feared. it's something that's coming to get us, whether it's pods taking over people, or which really in those days was the idea of communism, or Earth versus the flying saucers, where we had to battle them, and on and on and on. Not until really Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out, where there you saw some of the government conspiracies and things that were going on behind the scenes. But there was an attempt, I guess, to create a different mood about that. And I don't know if it was all that successful, because we still see this wild fear of anything unusual. And, me and Stan have worked in this field for so long. We say, yeah, officially we investigated for 11 years. I was on with the Rangers for 31 years. And during that time, I had numerous cases that were going on that were not officially investigated, because there was no mechanism for it, but they were noted. And so many UFO sightings that, I know of people that tell me they'd give their right arm to see a UFO. Well, I saw so many of them that it got ridiculous. And, at some point, I started having missing time episodes, at least 5 of them. And I had one gain time episode where I gained 45 minutes of time. And I started getting irritated. So I put a dash cam in my window. And I figured, well, since I obviously I don't have the skill to get my phone camera out and take a picture of these things, maybe, I'll be able to get them on a camera. And lo and behold, when that happened, I stopped seeing any UFOs, and I haven't seen any since. And Stan will tell you, I mean, we've been on the road together and seen UFOs, UAPs, however you want to call it. And I don't see any now. And the thing is I'm good with that. In fact, I'm so good with it, I upgraded to a 4K camera that records in ultra high definition. And I can get shooting stars and slow them down and watch them. And it's got a rear camera in the back where it'll film in 1080p. So now I can get them coming and going. And I haven't seen a thing.
Can I quickly share a story as well, connecting
Sure.
to that? Me and Laura did ayahuasca a journey, and afterwards on the last night, we went out of our film cameras, and we saw a UFO start going across us, and we went, right, let's film it. Started taking the camera out to film it, and it went into an airplane, started making a noise. It transformed from literally nothingness, and you could see the craft just hovering above us really nicely. We got the camera out, and as soon as we got the camera out, it turned into a plane and made noise. And we're like, and me and everyone saw it, and we're like, did you just see that? It completely transformed into something else. So yeah, that's a really good story, that.
Something else along those lines, because I know what you're talking about. You had your spiritual fill that they're real. You don't need anymore. I had the same thing. It reached the point where I don't need any more communications from you assholes. Stop. And poof, it stopped one day. I'm the only one that can start it now. It's a one-way. It used to be like I call it, I put my spiritual PA up. You could no longer talk to me unless you booked an appointment in no time. Okay? And all that from that point on, it's now life was so much simpler. Okay? It just reached a point, where it was too much, seeing it everywhere you go, to the point where, I just babble about it, and I'm like, enough. And then oh my God, life is so much more free now. I can see the shooting stars now. I don't have to see the plane turning into this or that. Great, that's a shooting star.
Well, Andrew, why did that happen? Why did you don't want that manifestation anymore of knowing that they're out there. Maybe it's
because I couldn't go to the bathroom in the morning without something trying to communicate to me before my coffee or my cigarette. 24 hours a day. They don't function in time. They don't have bodies. And they want to have string theory conversation of quantum physics from their reality compared to my point of view.
Exactly.
Because my point of view makes a difference to their reality. The humans here see the uniqueness of the universe different. And there's a very narrow band of time in which they can ask us questions about their perspective that may not be true to their physics, but it's true to our physics.
Yeah.
Let's somebody understand physics change based on your belief. And beings in Tau Ceti have a belief of physics, and the beings here have a belief of physics, which are two different sets of realities. And they're trying to make comparison analysis of what we see and believe now as a collective and uncollective, and how that will change as we change our beliefs of what physics scales to your awareness.
I think
one of the things that was brought up, when you talked about something changing form, I think, we're dealing with species that have technology that can be a million years ahead of the human race. And I think some of these objects and things that we're witnessing at times use technology to cloak themselves from our visible spectrum. I think they mimic, a lot of times they mimic existing aircraft within the United States or the Earth's environment. It'll mimic maybe the flashes of light, shapes, things of that nature, to remain concealed. I think there's a lot of different things that's sometimes that leave us wondering, what the did I just see, here? Because
did I just see? Exactly.
So, yeah.
Now, I do believe that the narrative of elites running this world has a deal with any ship coming in and out of our reality, that they all use the technology that they can't be commonly observed by the naked eye. Commonly called cloaking technology. Cloaking from what these eyes and the parameters of light wave we can see. The psychic realm's a little something different. What these eyes can see. I absolutely believe that there's a common set of rules globally throughout the narrative that stops them. And I believe right now at any given time, there's tens of thousands of craft flying all around this planet. It's a beehive of activity.
Well, a friend of John and I worked on, I won't mention the agency, but it's a high level U.S. military agency that monitors anything that's flying within Earth's environment. And according to this individual, there's tens of thousands of things that are in our airspace that's unknown at any given time. And and I know that there was and is individuals that were in Mexico that were using visible camera and then infrared cameras, various filters of infrared that were in the visible camera. You couldn't see the objects there, but when you would turn into that same space using different filters and stuff, there was all kinds of activity within that. And I think that occurs, in our world every single day. Various types of entities that are there, but it's just not on the frequencies and spectrum where we can actually visually see them. And I think some of us have become in tune to those energies that are there and can perceive them, when others right next to you don't sense anything.
Exactly. That's why it's subjective to the individual's belief.
Right.
If the individual has a connected faith belief, you're going to see through the lens of the connected faith belief.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who has a different connected faith belief, who will see something else through their perception. And perception creates a bigger perspective, and that perception creates a bigger narrative about a subject matter that may be connected with non-faith subject matters. Like mathematics can prove the universal existence over and over again, but we're not going to accept mathematics as spiritual, are we? Even though when you talk to real mathematics people, they say it shows you the beauty of the universe and the infiniteness of what it can be. Math is the first language to spirituality, but science isn't going to admit that.
Yeah,
there's many ways.
I think one of the things that I'll say here, and we've said it before, but for the Paranormal Rangers, this is one of the things that we speak about amongst ourselves a lot, is this idea. People ask us all the time, do you believe? Do you believe this? Do you believe that? And we don't really like to use that term belief, because belief is to have faith in something that there's no evidence. There's nothing there aside from you just believing in it. And what we've seen in our careers, the evidence that we've seen that this stuff has happened, that there is a physical manifestation, that something is actually going on that can be documented. Even if people don't believe it, like we said, in the Netflix episode, you weren't there. You didn't see what I saw. You didn't deal with the terrorized people that were just losing their minds, And
you transcended belief.
So, we looked at it from an evidentiary point of view. What could we take to a federal court and testify? And it's a really, really thin, hard line to take. Mm-hmm. And we've seen enough evidence that tells us that something is there, something is up. And, I can't help you if you think that, it's a belief system, because for us,
that's why I said it is. Your experience, you transcended belief. You went beyond belief.
Right. Way beyond belief.
Into factuality from your own numerous experiences. It's just not I believe in the light and the angels. They're real because you had several dozen experiences that not only prove to you it was beyond real, that it's beyond belief.
Yeah.
It's next level of manifestation.
And early on, we speculated, because the goal of an investigator is to answer why. And that's a question that's often not given much thought. But you have to go a little further and say, why did this happen? As not only how, but and where, and all the other questions. And we started having different speculations about it, and we came up with this idea of the multi-dimensions, and that these things were dimensional. They were not extraterrestrial from billions of light years away. They were just right next door to us. And
adjacent reality.
Right. And so far, that is the only theory that fits all of the phenomenon, including Navajo skinwalkers, Bigfoot, UFOs, and hauntings. And we haven't, we're open-minded, we're looking, and we want to see, okay, is there something that's going to trump that theory? And we haven't found anything yet that makes any sense. And yet when you see the ATIP program and the things that they were looking at, faster than light travel, they were looking at dimensional gates, they were looking at multi-dimensional universes. They even did experiments with the Large Hadron Collider, and to try to open up dimensional gates and send messages through. So that tells me that there is government interest looking at metamaterials that haven't been seen here before and how they can be developed for aerospace use. So there's a lot that's going on that coincides with, and it also matches with not only with Navajo emergence stories, but with other tribes and their emergence stories and how they came to be here. So we haven't seen anything that takes away from that.
So I want to play a little word play and definition play. Extraterrestrial versus extra-dimensional. Okay. Extraterrestrial is inhabit, came from another world. Extra-dimensional is this world, but from an adjacent reality. Now, adjacent realities have different density to them. So a higher density adjacent reality will have higher functioning beings that can manifest into our reality, such as a Bigfoot, and go in and out of the various bubbles of dimensions, our sight-based vision. And you have lower density entities, such as reptoids, who may have come from another place, but now reside here in our layered reality. And in their particular unique layer, they're trying to terraform their little dimension in which they exist to make it better for their living. And then you have other beings who are completely natural to this world, the little peoples of all the different indigenous cultures, who have their own layer of reality, dimension, that can both function as high density beings or lower density beings, because each of them have a different purpose into the many layers of reality here. Okay. This planet, it services life, not unlife. Therefore, every dimension, extra dimension beyond our sight, is going to have an entire culture of beings that live in it. And I believe as more and more of the truth of extra dimensions and their layered realities come out, we'll discover that trillions upon trillions of beings live here. And we've been sharing the space for a very long time. And we just have to figure out how to share the space through new perspectives in which we can get along and not fight each other.
With that being said, Andrew, can I share a story?
Sure.
I have a gifted son, and he lives out of state, but he came home one time during his teenage years, and he goes, "Mom," he goes, "we need to go outside right now. And I said, "Okay." And he goes, and I was busy doing something in the kitchen, and he goes, "Mom, right now." So he pulls me outside. It was on a spring day. He goes, "I need for you to look up." And there was a massive clouds coming towards our home. Massive clouds. And he goes, "These clouds are going to go over the Wasatch Mountains." I live near the mountains. And he goes, "Look up." And you could hear a slight humming. And it was a fleet. And I said, "What is that, son?" And he goes, "There's a fleet of a species called the Armada. They have now just lost their planet, and now they're coming into our solar system." But what was intriguing to me is to see these massive clouds of being hitting their craft, was the insignias that they were writing inside the clouds to say, "We're here." And it was a clear blue day. It was just this cloud mass that went over our home into the mountain range above us, and then it disappeared. And so when you talk about these many entities or species that come to our world to share our galaxies, we must have certain resources, or we're really a special planet.
We are. I have called this planet a refugee safe haven.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of species who have lost their worlds have come here and have been accepted by the celestial mind of this planet on a refugee status to become natural living beings in the layered realities that she can offer. So everyone from any place, any space and time can come here and have their own unique, unlimited space to regrow their species.
And I've always kept that inside because I thought that was a special event between my son and I. But when you spoke about this, where we share the space with other races and entities, it's really hard because contextually there is verbiage. We don't know how to put things to things that are unknown to our bodies, our minds, the way we're constructed, and not having met them. We don't know what their realities are to our reality. But we know there's an existence because things are starting to show up, just like the mall, just like, different experiences everybody's having, the transcendence of belief. Do we believe? Well, I believe what I've experienced in my life is my truth. And so this was an experience that was my truth and my son's truth.
And you also had things that validated the transcendence from belief to factuality. That's what the Rangers did by every time they recorded and put down evidence that they could take to a court. That's the transcendence where it's not about just raw belief anymore. Mm-hmm. These are the facts. Right. And these facts are undisputed. Okay? You have the evidence to bring in front of a court to say that this actually happened. Signed affidavits, et cetera, et cetera. That transcendence of belief is vital for the growth of all parts of the consciousness that's involved in these realities. Mm-hmm. Those refugee species who have their own little tiny space, well, they also want to be able to share our malls. They want to have open reality because the vast majority of other worlds allow that. Part of my cosmology's said is before this world went through the breakdown of what it is, it had 8,400 separate individual times. And you could link to a time, to your density, and to your dimension, times 8,400. So that means there's 8,400 single time addresses with dimensions and densities in them, with all their unique spaces that they could have. We're being ruled by one thing called Roman numeral time, which is just a social agreement that has a mathematical factor of validation behind it. Mm-hmm. When we return back to natural living and we are looking up at the moon and the sun, and we use natural sidereal time, your position to the moon where you are locally, you're going to be able to have access once again to those 8,400 different zones of unique time. And that's what makes this planet uniquely special, is that it has all of those different time addresses. And it's why time travel is such a humongous part of the off-world communication going on. As I said earlier, I didn't know when things were communicating. That was a very common factor. So I realized it doesn't matter. It's all past, present, and future simultaneously existing for this being here now. As long as I accepted that, the communication was in the present now. Because when the present's over, now what? Always comes down to that. Once that moment ends, now what? What do you do with it? Well, how does it change?
We always have this concept that time is a linear line stretching off into the distance in a straight line, that once you go through there's no going back. And I don't know, I kind of think, I've often thought of time as like a record player, like a record that has spirals out. But now I'm starting to wonder if it's more like a ball of string.
It is. I call it the hairball.
Yeah. And, like Doctor Who used to say, this wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, is our concepts, which we've set in concrete so long ago, don't stand up to the realities. And the other thing I wanted to say was, we see people recoil when they see shadow figures, when they see 10-foot supposed aliens or interdimensional figures. We can't even get along with our fellow man.
Mm-hmm. Today,
I want to add something.
They
don't want us to think we can't get along with our man. I think we get along with people far more than they want to let us on.
I think one time they said that there's over 200 armed conflicts going on in the world at any one time.
Yeah, created by the global elites, making them fight each other.
Right, and it's crazy because the people that are making the ammunition and the guns and the missiles are the ones that 3% are getting richer and
shaping the reality.
Right, and you and me are the ones that are being drafted into the military or being told we need to go in the military.
That's such a
okay. Are we back again?
Yeah,
you're back.
Did there for a second.
Okay.
One of the things too with mankind,
Yeah, Mike.
You know, when you're in kindergarten, you have that little plastic ball that you put the different shapes in, the triangles, the squares and stuff. Man tends to want to force and hammer certain shapes that don't fit into that ball to make it fit. To make it fit, you know, to make these concepts and ideas fit within what our understanding is, you know.
That's why I say multidimensional whole to polygonal whole.
Yeah, so we need to get beyond our past thinking and get into a different frame of mind with all this.
In that different frame of mind is the new thing we all have to experience as part of that shared experience of the awakening. Mm-hmm. It's something new. It isn't being repeated. I gave it my own term. I call it the 8th color of time. Time is not linear, and time is colored also. We previously, in the past 10,000 years, have been living in the 7 colors of time. The 8th color of time is where all colors of time blend into a unique experience, or the awakening, which is based in a remembrance of who we were, past, present, and future, as simultaneously existing beings who have access to as a consciousness and superconsciousness. And that multidimensional living is natural for us. And a part of learning that multidimensional living will be having a body here, there, and none of them competing to each other, and all feeding back to the superconsciousness mega experience. Imagine 500 of us, each out in their own unique fun adventure, feeding back the information to all of us simultaneously. That's the grandness we are meant to be as a species.
Well, like me and Stan always say, sometimes we can't change the world, but we can try to change our little tiny portion of it. And
right.
And so that's what we're doing.
Well, with that said, let's call that an end to the show. This has been a really fabulous show, guys. So your website should be up, I believe, shortly. We will put that out for everybody. Laura, you want to give a way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Laura, 2 feathers with the number 2 at gmail.com. I do online sessions for self-empowerment through shamanic practices. And over the next 2 weeks, Andrew, Dale and I will all be in York in the north of the UK doing our combined therapies, which we're pretty much full for. So we're really looking forward to that. And thanks very much. And thanks, you 3 Paranormal Rangers. Lovely to connect with you again.
Can I ask, can you put that email address, can you put that on our website where we communicate?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. You can also get me at twofeathersmedicine.com. Thank you.
Dale, giveaway
Thank
for
you.
you to give away.
If anybody would like psychic surgery and soul retrieval sessions, visit daletobin.com. I'm also running past life regression training throughout January and February. What an incredible, fun show. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Just to let everyone know, the Paranormal Rangers, we're building them a website right now, and it should be done rather shortly. And we've got a lot of things to announce. We're planning to do another Scotland tour where the Paranormal Rangers are going to join us for a multi-day tour around Scotland. We'll be doing paranormal investigations, all sorts of other stuff. So look forward to that coming out here in the next week or so. And you know who I am, and you go to my website, andrewbartzis.com, sign up for the email list, and we have a new automated booking system for anybody that wants to book sessions with us. All right, everybody, have a great day, and we will be back soon.
Thank you.